Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Myava here, and I help mothers of children with learning differences to have a stronger relationship with their children while keeping them safe online. So, I am back for more. If you tuned in last week, you heard my story on how I learned that there is a positive in every negative situation. You just must be willing to look for the positive. Otherwise, the negative will consume you. Must. You must search for the positive. Sometimes you have to dig way down. You have to dig deep to find what is positive in that situation. But there is something positive. There is a silver lining, no matter how bad it seems. You must be willing to look for it. Sometimes you must pray. If you can't see it on the surface for yourself, pray and ask God, but you must be willing to take that step. Otherwise, the negative will consume you and you'll just go through life existing and not living. And that's not something I want for any of us. So, to piggyback off of the story that I shared last week and how um, I went from not wanting to have children for 2 to 5 years after marriage so that I can enjoy my husband to being excited about being a mother and planning this family sooner than we originally had planned, to losing that baby. I had a miscarriage, and then the devastation of loss from that baby and how I had to navigate that space with my husband, to want to try again and be prayerful and hopeful that this time it would be a viable birth and that we didn't have to experience that loss over and over again. Unfortunately, some women and some families have that as their testimony, and my heart goes out to them because I had the one, and that was devastating. I can't imagine the multiple, but I do know that even if it happens over and over, there's a positive in it that I can't tell you right now what it was that that family, that couple would need to search for within themselves to find it. They would have to find those answers. I can't give them, but I know it's there, but you have to be willing to look for it. So fortunately, we were able to become pregnant again. And I would be lying to you if I told you that pregnancy was just so great because I was pregnant. Um, really, I was pregnant, but I carried fear. I was afraid of losing him too. So, as it was put to me, that in the spirit, I walked around like cradle in my belly, you know, holding it up, afraid that it might be lost as the first one was. So that was a journey too. It's just different. Fortunately, at the end of that journey, I had a baby that I could love and carry forth. But while I was pregnant, I used to tell people, I said, this baby is doing flips in my stomach. And everybody laughed at me. They said, you don't know what you're talking about. This your first baby. You don't know. And they blew me off, And I said, no, I could literally feel him like jumping and flipping around in me. And it kind of reminds me of the story, if you are familiar with the story of John the Baptist with his mother Elizabeth when she met Mary, which is the mother of Jesus and how when Mary told Elizabeth she was pregnant, the baby, which was John the Baptist, flipped in her. So that's what I envisioned when I had, those moments or feelings of him jumping in me. So anyway, when he was born, his umbilical cord was in 3 knots. And the first thing the doctor said when he was born, she said, your baby was doing flips in your stomach. He was doing gymnastics. And then all of a sudden I wasn't crazy, right? So um what I think happened though, potentially, this isn't proven. This is my hypothesis. What I think happened was those, first of all, remember I said you look for the positive in everything. Yes, my umbilical cord was in 3 knots, right? But look at God's grace. They weren't tight knots. My baby didn't die. My baby didn't die. They weren't tight knots. He never lost blood supply. This is what I mean by in every negative situation, you have to look for the positive, right? So I think that those 3 knots slowed down the blood flow enough that it caused developmental delays, but it did not cause death. So what? I had to work a little harder with him. So what? We had to spend more time at the dinner table doing homework. So what? I had to go to the school to give him what he need and advocate for him. So what? So what? He was here. He was here. My life was challenging with him, but he was here. I didn't have the opportunity to see my first baby. He never made it to earth. I never saw my first child. I never got to hold him. But I held Chris. I held him. So in this space, before he was born, I went to all the way through school. I excelled in school. I went to college. Um, at this point, I was working on my master's degree. I got married. Chris Sr. never had struggled and had any issues in school. My family, like there's no one I can pinpoint that really had the same kind of struggles or things. So quite naturally, I wasn't expecting anything. I thought everything was going to be great. I just thought, I really thought it was until it wasn't. So I had these great expectations of what life was going to look like for my son because I thought it would fall along the lines of what happened with me and his father. I just thought we would go on and live life, and not that it was perfect, but it wouldn't be certain struggles that we had to endure. That didn't happen. You know what? The best thing I did was let go of the expectations that I had, because those expectations was actually bondage for me in my mind and bondage for my child unfairly, to have him hold up to the expectations in my head that may or may not ever be um, real. That's real talk, guys. That was difficult because no parent wants to believe that anything could be less than what they perceive, what they want, their expectations for their children. no matter what they are. Yours don't have to be the same that mine was, but no one wants to have to let that go. But if you want to live life and you want to appreciate the life of your child, if you want to appreciate their abilities, if you want to appreciate their gifts to this world, what they have to offer, you got to let it go. You got to let it go. Otherwise, it's not fair. It's not fair to you, and it's not fair to your child. Let it go. We're all different. We're all different. And it doesn't mean that you did something wrong as a parent. It doesn't mean that you failed. It doesn't mean that the child failed. You know, there's a story in the Bible when the disciples asked Jesus, it was a blind man, and the disciples asked Jesus, who sinned? Was it this man or was it his parents? And Jesus said, neither. It was for such a time as this, meaning sometimes things just happen. Sometimes things just happen. Sometimes God allows things to happen so he can perform a miracle. Sometimes God allows things to happen to get our attention so we can turn to him. I can't tell you why things happen in your life. I don't always understand why they happen in mine, but I know that they couldn't happen in my life unless God allowed it. I know that they couldn't happen in my life if there wasn't a reason. So I've learned to accept the things that happen in my life, whether I like them or not, whether they're comfortable or not. I accept them because God accepted them. Then I have to pray and ask, how do I navigate this space? How do I get past the situation? I have learned, oh my gosh, one of the biggest lessons that I've learned is to pray and ask God for strategy. Lord, what is the strategy for me to make it through this? What do you want from me? How am I supposed to show up? How, Lord? Not why me. I'm so beyond why me. Don't even matter why me. Why not me? The bigger question is, Lord, why? Why did you allow this to happen? What am I to learn from this? What do you want me to get from this? Where's the purpose? After you go through what I've been through in life, and as you're going to start hearing this stuff, you learn that there is purpose for the pain. There is purpose for the pain. God turns pain into purpose. He does. And my purpose is to share with the world that they're not alone. You're not alone. And just because you have pain don't mean it has to be the end. Just because you have struggles don't mean it has to be over. I'm proof that it's not over. I'm living proof. I'm living proof that I went on to earn my doctorate. I have my PhD. It's a dual concentration. I have my PhD in higher ed and leadership and administration. I would never have chose to do that. I would never have done that. That was God ordained and God directed. My plan was to open up a preschool, and I thought leadership and administration would be the best way because this was this program, this PhD program, was for people to be leaders in education, right? So I enrolled in the school, and I got through all of my core courses. All I had left was electives. So I had 7 core courses in leadership and administration, and I needed 11 electives. So we had to go away for consortium, like on-site learning for a week. We went away for a week, and I went to see the dean of the program, and she said, Myava, how did you get accepted? How did you get accepted into this program? Because at that point, I needed to do my internship, and I was having trouble finding a place to do an internship. And that's when I found out the program that I had gotten accepted to was for teachers who were primary school teachers who wanted to go back to school to become principals, or principals who wanted to go back to school to become superintendents. But it was for people that taught primary school. So I went immediately, I went into a panic, and almost instantly the Holy Spirit calmed me down, and I had put things in perspective. And I said, God allowed me to be here. He allowed me to be accepted. So just calm down. And so as we're talking, I calmed down, and she said, okay, this is what I need you to do. Monday, when you get home, I need you to call your advisor, tell them the circumstances, tell them how many classes you have left, and go from there. He can help you. So I did. We started talking, and we were talking about higher ed. So this is how good God is. And this is why I'm saying nothing's wasted. So as we were talking, oh, I forgot to tell you, I was a teacher, but I was teaching on a collegiate level. I was teaching at the Community College of Philadelphia, but I was teaching adults, not primary school. So although I was an educator, technically speaking, I shouldn't have had been accepted into that discipline because I didn't teach from K through 12. All right. So as I was talking to the advisor, there was an education track for higher education. Wouldn't it be just like God that in this track for higher ed, there was 6 core courses that I needed to take and 7 electives that I needed to take, right? In the leadership and administration track that I was in, it was 7 core courses that I needed to take and 6 electives. So God did it in such a way that I have 2 degrees in one. I would never have done that myself. So now I have all the credits for higher ed as well as leadership and administration. Only God. Only God. And the reason why I say that is I understood why the leadership and administration track was so difficult for me. Um, it's because I wasn't a primary school teacher. So I took these classes, I read these books. After every chapter of reading, I cried because I didn't understand what I read. And it's because I wasn't a primary school teacher. And I prayed, and the Holy Spirit taught me everything that I read. Do you know that I graduated that program with a 3.92? Only one class I didn't get a 4.0 in. That one class I got a B plus in, and it brought my grade down from a 4.0 to a 3.92. So what's my point in sharing that? I would never have chosen that track had I known that you needed to be a primary school teacher to take that track. God didn't reveal it until I finished my seventh class that I wasn't supposed to be in that track according to the school. But according to God, I was supposed to be right where I was because I needed the tools today that I learned in that experience. Okay. So I got the higher ed degree that I needed to advance me on a collegiate level. Now I'm a program director at a university for a program that the tools that I gained from that is helping me. Putting both of those together, I come up with some very, very creative things for my program. And the instruction design person at our college, he couldn't believe I didn't have a background in instructional design, but that's the collaboration of what I learned gave my mind a different way of thinking, and I present differently. I wouldn't have chose that path for me, but God did. He knew I would need it now. Don't run from things that you don't understand. Ask for strategy, ask for clarification. Ask God, what is this for me? What am I supposed to get from this? You may not get everything in real time, but if you accept it in real time, then it has a purpose. Then as you pursue and as you push forward, as you go through life, in due season, it'll be revealed, right? So going back to my children, so my son was he had hit this umbilical cord in 3 knots. Fortunately, again, 3 loose knots. Um, I think it was enough to slow things down, but not enough to do damage. So when Chris was younger, he was slow to speak. He was a late walker, but he walked about 15 months. He was late compared to his cousins who were he has two first cousins, one on my side, one on my husband's side, that was one was 6 weeks older and one was 3 months older. So we had children around us that we could compare and navigate things and see where Chris fit in, where he was similar, where he was different or whatever. So we started noticing that they were doing things that he wasn't able to do well. And one, they both were walking, and we were concerned, but then he started walking, so it was fine. Two, they were talking, and Chris couldn't really, you couldn't understand him. The average person couldn't understand him. The funniest thing is we always knew what he wanted because we spent so much time with him. But Chris could only say clear apple, Elmo, mom, dad, and he said cook for cookie. Other than that, his other words weren't really legible, but yet and still we always knew what he wanted. And the only way I knew that things weren't legible was people used to say, like when he would say something, they would say, "What did he say?" And then I would tell them. And then that's when I understood, oh, he's not clear to other people. Okay, so then I paid attention to that. When Chris was around a year, his cousins were all playing catch and they were throwing a ball. And one of his cousins could throw a ball completely across the room, and he was only 3 months older than Chris. And I said, okay, when Chris threw a ball, it would only go maybe 2 feet and then it would fall. and I paid attention to that. Then it was just other things that had come up. And Chris and I, we would talk to each other and we said, something's not right. Um, Something's not right. And we would share with our parents or things, and they would say, oh no, everybody just grows at their own speed. He's just a late bloomer, especially my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law was a kindergarten teacher, so she was always around kids. So she knew that kids develop at different speeds. She even bought us a book called Leo the Late Bloomer, and it's about this little tiger who was different than all the other cubs, and they used to make fun of him or think he was strange or whatever. And then eventually he was able to do the things that the other cubs could do. And that's why he was called Leo the Late Bloomer. It wasn't that he couldn't do it, he just couldn't do it yet. So she tried to encourage us with Leo the Late Bloomer, and it worked for a while. And Chris Jr. loved the story. But then I'm like, as everything kept happening and occurring, I'm like, okay, is this just late too? Okay, is this too? And we got to the point where we said, this can't all be coincidence. So we went to his pediatrician. The first thing you want to do is start with the pediatrician. And his pediatrician suggested, and we loved her. We loved his pediatrician. Now, if you have a pediatrician who is taking care of your child and they don't take care of your needs and concerns, get another one, because that pediatrician should be taking care of you and your concerns as much as your child and your child's concerns. So anytime we came and had questions of concern and things, she addressed them. She answered our questions until we were satisfied. She allowed us to ask as many questions as we needed to ask to gain an understanding so we can make an informed decision. And when we were expressing these concerns of him possibly uh, being delayed or whatever, she suggested that we go see the intermediate unit. We live in Montgomery County, so we went to the Montgomery County intermediate unit to have him tested. And that's when they confirmed that he was delayed. Not only did he need speech therapy, he needed occupational therapy, which is the fine motor skills to help him write. And he needed gross motor therapy, which are the skills to help him run, play, ride a bike. Okay. So we were on it. He was 2.5. We didn't wait. We didn't waste any time. By that time, it was enough time to see that he was struggling in areas and he needed help. So to you parents that are in denial, and if someone's telling you to get your child tested, please get them tested. The best case scenario is they don't need service. What do you have to lose if you get them tested and it's deemed that they don't need services? But you have a lot to lose if they need services and you don't get them until they're later in life. You want to get the services met and started before they go to kindergarten. You want to have if they are in need, you want to have their needs addressed, because the sooner they work on them, the faster they can close that gap. Yes, we were able to get Chris to start closing the gap. But if we didn't get the help early, we wouldn't have had that opportunity. So please get your child the services that they need to get things rolling. Don't be in denial. And if you want to prove the person wrong that's telling you that they need help and you don't think they do, get them tested and let the professionals tell you that they don't need help. And then you can go back and say, see, I told you they don't need help, right? But if they do need help and you don't get them the help they need, you can be a hindrance to your child by prolonging the services. And it could take a longer period of time to get them to close the gap later than it would if you would get them the help that they need now. So I won't prolong this session. Thank you for listening. And remember, my name is Dr. Myava Clark, and I help mothers of children with learning differences to build a stronger relationship with their child while keeping them safe online. Until the next time, take care.